Assalamualaikum and hi to my lecturer, Dr. AZIMAH binti DAUD, and to all my fellow friends. For today's presentation, me and my group mates going to present about the absolute decoupling of Paris. This presentation will be presented by Daniel, me Ilhan Farique, IKHWAN HAKIMI, AMIR IZZAT, FITRI AZIM, and also ZAMIR AMANI. Firstly, for the introduction and profile of Paris, I am going to talk about the concept of absolute decoupling. There are two types of decoupling, which is relative decoupling and absolute decoupling. Relative decoupling is when the economy continues to grow while still affecting the environment, but at a slower rate, while the absolute decoupling happens when the economy is growing while decreasing the environmental impact. Okay, next I'm going to share about the urban structure of Paris and also the demographic profile and key population features of Paris. As we all know, Paris is the capital of France and Paris is located in the center of the country. Paris is a small city that covers 105.4 kilometers, which is smaller to be compared to other cities around the world. There are 20 districts in Paris which accommodate 2.2 million people in the city and more than 12 million people in the metropolitan area. In Paris, the citizens over 60 years old are increasing. This situation increases the needs of an efficient and inexpensive public transport. Alright, next I'm going to share about the transportation system overview and also the Paris Metro as a mobility service in Paris. The public transport in Paris includes the Paris Metro, public bus services that are operated by RATP, trams and regional trains linking the city with its surrounding. The Paris Metro has more than 300 stations that include 16 lines and cover 214 kilometers of track. Paris Metro is a cheaper alternative to individual cars. By using Metro, it can help to alleviate traffic congestion, decrease CO2 emission, and decrease air pollution.
Hi, I will be discussing some of the key transport and logistic challenges in Paris, starting with congestion and its economic impact. Traffic congestion is one of the most significant economic challenges for the city. Paris experiences congestion, costing the economy a staggering 3 billion annually due to the lost productivity. Commuters lose up to 140 per year stuck in traffic, leading to delays in goods service delivery and increased fuel consumption. Despite a robust public transport system, private car dependency continues to drive congestion, especially during the peak hour. For example, popular areas like Champs-Élysées has very heavy congestion, particularly during the tourist seasons. Next, we have the environmental challenge of pollution caused by transport. Paris has made effort with low emission zones and ultra low emission zones, but air quality remains a major issue. Diesel power vehicles are the primary contributors to particulate matter, PM and NOx pollution, which are harmful to public health. Moving on to a social challenge, transport inequality in Paris remains a key issue while central Paris has an extensive public transport network. Suburban areas face limited access to affordable and efficient service. This inequality prevents low-income groups from accessing essential services like education, healthcare, and employment. For example, residents in areas like Saint-Denis struggle with inadequate transport, leading to a social exclusion. Now, let's look at the technological challenge, particularly the integration of shared mobility solutions like electric scooters and bike sharing programs such as Velib. While these alternatives offer flexible and environmentally friendly transport options, they have led to a street clutter and safety issue for pedestrians. Lastly, aging infrastructure poses a significant challenge. A large portion of Paris metro and bus network is over 100 years old, and many of these systems are not outdated. This is not only leads to inefficiency but also hinders the integration of modern technologies such as smart traffic management and clean energy solutions. For example, Line 1 of the metro, which is one of the busiest lines, is undergoing a 1.5 billion project to be automated and modernized.
Next, I will be presenting on the economic and environmental indicators that show how Paris is progressing towards decoupling, the separation of economic growth from environmental harm. Let's begin with GDP and the income trends. Paris is not just the capital of France, but also its main economic engine, contributing over 1.03 trillion in GDP in 2024, which is more than 31% of the national totals, even though it only holds 90% of the population. The GDP per capita in Paris is around 65 to 100,000, higher than the national average of about 42,000. This high economic performance show that Paris is a productive and wealthy city. But what makes Paris stand out is progress toward absolute decoupling. While the economy is growing, the city is reducing environmental impact. One clear example is the transport sector, which used to be heavily car-dependent. Back in 2010, car accounted for about 9.5% of trips, but that's dropped to just 6% by 2020. Paris had added over 100 cycle lanes and converted many cars lanes into bike lanes. This shift has not only helped reduce congestion, but also cut emission and promote healthier, low-impact modes of transport. Transport is now contributing more to clean mobility than pollution, which support the decoupling trend. Next slide, we move to the emission and energy. The transport sector has been a major source of CO2 emission in Paris, but thanks to local policies, this is changing. The city implemented low emission zone to reduce high emission vehicles and promote cleaner alternative. As a result, Paris is no longer just in the relative decoupling, where emission grows slower than GDP, but is moving toward the absolute decoupling, where emissions are actually decreasing while economy grows. In terms of urban environmental pressure, Paris introduced a low traffic zone (LTZ) in the city center in 2024 to cut down private vehicle use. In the same year, it reduced speed limit on the ring road from 70 km per hour to 50 km per hour, benefiting around 500,000 residents by lowering noise and air pollution. On the energy side, Paris public transport operator RATP installed regenerative braking system on metro train, achieving 30% energy saving per station. Additionally, public buildings are being retrofitted to reduce heating demand. Since 2015, level of PM10 and NO2 have been steadily declining, with support Paris' goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2050.
Thank you, IKHWAN, for your explanation about the economy and environmental indicators relevant to decoupling. My name is MOHAMAD IZZAT, and I will continue this presentation with explanation about the cultural, social, and behavioral context. Firstly, I will explain about the local transport culture and mode preference at Paris. Basically, Paris was shifted from a car-focused culture to a sustainable, shared, and active transport model. Absolute decoupling meaning in this study was economic growth continue while reducing transport pollution. There are various models of transport that Paris provides, which is public transport, cycling, and walking, are now seen as smart and modern. For example, as you can see at the picture on the right, that is the picture of Rue de Rivoli Street that was transformed into a car-restricted street, prioritizing bikes and buses. Also, we provide the data of annual public transport journey at Paris, France, 2019. Next, I will explain about the gender, income disparity, and accessibility consideration. The Grand Paris Express is a massive public transportation project in the Paris metropolitan area, involving the constructions of new metro lines and extensions to existing ones. The Grand Paris Express project improved access for low-income suburbs. This project was introduced because to give discount and fare subsidies for low-income commuters. On top of that, in this project, there are safety features for women, which is on-demand bus stop at night. In this feature, it was provide better lighting and more CCTV for women users. Next, I will explain about the mobility needs of youth, elderly, and disabled groups. For the disabled groups of users, they will provide with elevators, tactile paving, and priority seats in buses and metro. Furthermore, RATP also upgrades some of their features, which is they will add audiovisual alerts and wheelchair ramps for all of their public transport. Also, they will provide student discounts and smart cards for easier access for all of their users. Next, I will explain about car ownership, motorcycle usage, and ride-hailing. Basically, there is a decline in car ownership due to parking fees and low emission zones, which are clean air. For all the vehicles that make more polluting ones are restricted in some areas at Paris. On top of that, the use of motorcycle and scooter is also still in use, but it is also becoming cleaner. Some of the brands that provide electric scooter is Lime, Cityscoot, and ZT. In terms of e-hailing industry, Uber and Bolt shifting to hybrid or electric fleets due to a new environmental rules. Lastly, I will explain about the social acceptance and behavioral impacts. There is a new program that named Paris Respire, which means Paris Breath. This program was introduced to help the residents to glorify the city in a new, healthier manner. In this program, people of Paris will shift from use of their private car to cycling, walking, and using public transport. This location will create an emotional based and a social routine of using clean means of transportation. So that is all from me. I will pass this presentation to the next presenter, which is ZAMIR AMANI. Thank you.
My name is Muhammad ZAMIR AMANI bin Muhammad TAJZEMIN. So I will be presenting the section 5.0 of our report, which focuses on Paris and how the city applies decoupling strategies in transport. Paris is aiming for what we call absolute decoupling, where the economic growth continue while environmental impacts like emissions go down. Here are the main strategies. First, the low emission zone. Restrict all the polluting vehicles and a full diesel ban is planned by 2025. Paris has also turned part of the city like Rue de Rivoli and the Seine riverbanks into car-free pedestrian areas. Through Plan Velo, the city invested 250 million to expand bike lanes and the valid bike sharing system. For deliveries, cargo bikes and micro hubs are being used to reduce truck congestion. Paris also introduced mobility as a service apps like Bonjour RITP, which combine metro, buses and bike sharing in one platform. Lastly, the Grand Paris Express will add over 200 km of new metro lines to improve connection from the suburbs, while the Paris Metro continues to support clean and efficient city travel. Next is 5.2, which is success factors for implementation. These strategies work well in Paris for a few key reasons. The first is infrastructure readiness. Paris already had a strong transport system like the metro and RER trains. Cycling infrastructure has also improved through Plan Velo and Valid. Second is government support and policy. The mayor of Paris and Hidalgo is very active in leading green mobility changes, and the city gets support from both the national government and the EU. Third is public acceptance. Many people inside the Paris already prefer walking, cycling or taking public transport. Lastly, technological and financial capacity help make it all possible. Apps like City Mapper and Bonjour RATP make travel easier, and funding comes from national EU and private sources to support projects like metro expansion and EV charging. Lastly, 5.3, which is anticipated impacts. This strategy have had a positive impact on many levels. Economic impact include less congestion, better productivity and more foot traffic in local business areas. People also save money on fuel and car costs. Environmental impacts include cleaner air and lower CO2 and NO2 levels, especially since fewer people are driving and more are cycling or using the metro. Socially, mobility has improved for people who don't drive, like the elderly, student and low-income groups. But some suburbs still lack good transport links, so equity is still a challenge. Lastly, technologically, Paris is becoming a smart mobility leader. The city is expanding EV charging using real-time travel apps and improving logistics with smart delivery systems.
Okay, my name is JEMALI. So I'm going to explain about conclusion and future outlook. For the first part, we look at a summary of key findings. First is goals, challenges, strategies for success and impact. So what is Paris' goal is to achieve climate neutrality by 2050 and also to reduce transport emission and congestion. So what is the challenges? Challenges at first is high transport emission in low emission zone LEZ and also aging infrastructure. What is the strategies for success? First is to expand low emission zone LEZ, create pedestrian friendly street like in Rue de Rivoli, more cycling infrastructure and also mobility as a service. What is the impact from all those plans? Is first for the economy, less congestion, higher productivity and also better for businesses. For environmental, better air quality, lower carbon dioxide emission. Third is social, improved mobility access, but suburban gaps remains. For the technology, Paris leading is smart mobility, like I said earlier, MAS and also EV charging. So what is the lesson that other city can take from Paris? First, invest in good public transports, design walkable and bikeable city. So people feel more safe when they are walk and also using bicycle. Use policy tools to limit emission. Example like heavy vehicles like lorry and also diesel vehicle. And lastly, reform urban freight and minimize congestion. So for the recommendation, first is enhance public transport, Second is expensive cycling, walking infrastructure. Implement mobility as a service, MAAS. Promote sustainable freight solution, ensure universal accessibility, and also boost EV adoption and tighten emission standards. What is and lastly, future action. What is Paris can do? First is scale up renewable energy for public transport. Introduce dynamic road pricing. Develop smart traffic management system. Mandate green logistics for e-commerce. And lastly, establish a 15-minute city framework. That's all from us. Thank you.